interview with O.B. Freeman conducted on January 31st, 2000, and it picks up on this very day, January 1944, with the arrival of the 4th Marine Division in the Marshall Islands. Last time, we got to the point where you were headed for the Marshall Islands from California. So I'm going to pick up there. Tell me what you remember of that sea voyage. I've read in the books that was the biggest fleet ever in the history of the world up to that time.
Well, of course, we were going on ships going out, doing maneuvers out Sacramento Island, or Clemente, or whatever them islands are off California. We done maneuvers and so forth, that they'll come back in. So I've been on ships, but that's it. We left at San Diego that morning, and gosh, I don't know, just day after day, when we stopped while we was getting built up. They called it, I think, Lahana Roads, in between all them islands and Hawaii. And then we left there, and the rest of the time was just aboard ship.
Walk me through a typical day on board that ship.
Well,
what were your quarters?
We went to stay, Radis in a hold was stacked up about 4 high in hammocks, and but I never stayed. One day I never stayed in that. I stayed up on top. I slept up on the iron deck at night. And we played cards during the day, and we'd had to do our calisthenics and so forth. And some of us, they had gunnery practice. They might put us on 20 millimeter guns or 50 cal machine guns. Planes brought socks across. That was before we got way near the war zone. That's right out the States. And of course we had chow. Every time we had chow, well, we never got to sit down. You stood up at the table and eat chow. And you get wholesome food. It wasn't nothing fancy. Bunch of boys. We didn't have any fresh water to wash with. We had to use, the crews did, but salt water. Had a bar of soap. You never did feel like you really got clean. But we played hearts, lots of hearts. That's where I learned how to play hearts. And like I say, we had calisthenics, and then we'd catch guard duty at night. Because it had curtains, because you didn't want no lights from them ships, right, going in and out the hold. So we'd catch guard duty, or maybe didn't catch. There's so many of us that, maybe caught it once or twice. And about a day or two before we hit the islands, they'd gather us up in the groups, and they'd tell us where we were going, what we were doing, and what our maneuvers, our plans. A lot of that stuff that we done fit in with us hitting those beaches and those islands.
Correct me if I'm wrong, when you did your combat training in California, they already knew what the assignment was going to be for the 4th Division, right?
I'm sure.
The high brass. Because the training you received in California was specific for those operations.
That's right.
Yeah. At what point did they?
But we didn't know where we were going.
At what point did you learn where you were headed? That you were headed for the Marshall Islands?
I imagine
after leaving Hawaii, I said.
Oh Lord, it wasn't. I guess probably wasn't about 48 hours or something like before we hit the island. They told us where we were going, and about the size of the islands, and and we were hitting the area where the airport was and so forth. And whatever we would hit and so forth. And we would be going in the, we call them alligators, these tracks that take in.
Amphibious tractors? Yeah, also call them LSTs.
Because of the reefs, you know, and that's what we went in.
Are those what you had trained on in California? Because those LSTs were pretty new, weren't they?
Yeah. We first trained in I call them Higgins boats, you know.
Right.
Had the front end of it to drop out and we'd go ashore on them.
Like in the opening scene on Private Ryan, on that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what they were in?
And then they started getting those, and
I've had the hardest time getting the terminology down, so I've been taking notes as I've gone along. These LVTs were the things that are called Amtraks or amphibious tractors, right?
and vehicle tractors. Yeah, with alligators.
Alligators, I see.
That's what we call them, I know. But then those...
And the other thing you could practice on were the LCVPs, all things known as Higgins boats. Yeah. Landing craft, vehicle, or personnel. So
it's hard to remember. We could have hit the landing craft when we hit on there, but I know we used to, on the Saipan and Tinian, we used to have tracks on them. And I believe that we might have used the other boats there on the Marshalls.
I don't think so from what I've
We come
read.
down and we didn't go aboard those, what do you call them, LSDs, these big crafts that had all those in the bow. I don't think we got on them till we got ready to go to Saipan. I could be mistaken, but I think...
Well, from the books I've read, this one book that I read that I've taken some notes on here said, talking about tide tables, and it said there would be none of those Higgins boats so useful on the sand beaches of the South Pacific, so much a hindrance among coral reefs.
Okay, so we went in.
There were 19 or 20 big LSTs in the task force. On their decks and ends, they carried 110 amphitracts of a new organization, the 10th Amphitrack Battalion, with 44 armed amphitracts from another organization attached. So it talks about the LSTs holding the position, and the Higgins boats brought men from the transports farther out so they would shift the tracks at the LSTs and pass into the lagoon for the main assault. So,
Well, see, we had to shift to the LSTs because we were on the group transport.
it also talks about these DUKWs, they call ducks.
That's what we call it. That's what we call them.
That's something different than the gators, right?
No. I guess
It's all real confusing.
Yeah, Lord, I just can't remember.
Yeah.
I know when we got ready to get those olives, we had to go down in those ships and get in them things. When they cranked them up, the exhaust was horrible.
Yeah, that's what I've read.
Very bad.
Talk to me about about Tarawa. I know that had been the biggest engagement yet involving the Marines, and you guys must have known a lot what had gone on
They
there.
told us about what happened to Tarawa. You know, the Navy commanders were over the Marines, and they're the ones that sent us in at the wrong tide and everything at Tarawa, and they couldn't get in. They had to get out of those boats and things ashore.
Right.
They were just wide open. And it was so small that the enemy, gosh, all they had to do was just shoot them like ducks out there. Tarawa, I guess, was probably the most bloody foot for foot. Of course, Evo was really awful bloody too. But they did get ashore, you know, in the tracks. But Tara, I don't guess they had these landing tractors on Tara because they didn't use them.
Right.
And, I've seen a few pictures of them, you know. And most of those islands, when you got to the beach, it'd be sandy and sloping, and then you'd go up kind of over a hump. And, that's where they had trouble, because had the enemies right up there on top. Crossfire, and Taiwan, I know they had these big bunkers and so forth that the Navy shell just bounced off of. The men had to crawl up there and throw stuff in the hole and so forth to get rid of them. And,
Okay, let's pick up then with, as you approached, let's see, what they call this group of islands, the Kwajalein Atoll.
well, now, that
The
was-
big ring of islands that included Roi-Namur. Yeah. Let's see,
That's where they also, later on, you know, set off those atomic bombs.
right, yeah.
But these were beautiful inside those lagoons.
So let's pick up there, when you, what do you recall from when you first arrived in those, as the ship approached those islands, were you on deck, and what's your impression, when you first approached there, when you first saw land?
Well, you couldn't hardly see much because the ships were shelling them, and then the airplanes, right after they quit shelling, they go in and lay down a barrage while we're in these small boats going ashore. We might have been out a mile, 2 miles or something like that when we loaded up. So you couldn't see a whole lot. You could see every once in a while, I know when they'd hit maybe some gasoline dumps or something, those barrels explode and go up in the air, and then just before we hit the beach, well, they cut out all that firing and so forth, and then we hit and scoot as fast as we can get up them darn hills and crawl on our bellies and so forth.
The book that I read, one of the books that I read.
We got most of that, Marshall was on Roy, and that was the airfield. I guess that's it.
Right,
That's the airfield. We took it and most of it that whole day, that first day. And this one over here, for the 24th, 25th, this was the worst battle.
Right.
Because they had lots of problems over there. We had some strafing and so forth, and that second, third day, well, we had it all cleaned up.
What do you remember of the day? What was the conditions like that day? Do you recall?
Well, we didn't have too rough, firing from the Japs and so forth.
Weather, let's talk about weather
Weather was
conditions.
good, perfect.
Ocean was reasonably calm?
Yes, we didn't have any problem with weather all the time on that island.
Because apparently, the troops who landed on these outer islands the day before y'all landed, they reported some problems with heavy seas and water coming over the sides of the boats.
I don't remember any rough water.
Because apparently that first day, which would have been January the 30th or 31st, they landed, they captured these outlying islands so that they could set up artillery. And then the landing was on the second day there. Talk to me about what you wore and what you carried.
Well, we just had
that landing.
Well, we had a backpack that we carried, some like personal belongings, maybe a clean set of pair of socks or skivvies and maybe a toothbrush something in there, and that's about it. We didn't carry any bedding, we all had 2 blankets. They'd issued 2 blankets when you was in the Marine Corps, but we didn't carry those ashore, as I remember. And then, of course, we had our ammunition and belts and grenades and water canteens.
How many grenades did you carry?
Usually from 2 to 4, 2 to 4. and you hook them in, you know, of course, I had a BAR, I had a belt that big with clips. Those clips hold 20 rounds.
For the Browning automatic
For the
rifle.
Browning automatic rifle, and I think I even had, seemed like I carried 6 clips, and then we had a rifleman carried M1 rifle as assistant BARman, and he carried a bandolier that had about 4, you know. But
You carried the Browning rifle.
I think I had 6 or 8 in my belt. Of course, that belt, hey, you had to have suspenders and have to hold that belt up. And
But you carried the Browning
I
rifle.
had the Browning automatic, and
How much does one of those weigh?
that like with the tripod, everything weighed 22 pounds. But we got rid of those tripods. We never did use those in combat.
Now, that Browning was strictly it was strictly for setting up in a stationary position and...
Well, you laid it anyway.
Yeah.
You use it just like a rifle. But you had firing power. In other words, if there's something that they wanted to really put the firing power, like semi-automatic, you know, you pull the trigger each time, it wouldn't fill it. If you pull that trigger, an automatic, you can hold that trigger back and it'll empty the thing out just a quick distance. But
So it wasn't a fully automatic?
no, it was semi-automatic.
It wouldn't have been fitted with a bayonet or anything?
No.
Too big for that?
No, them ones had bayonets. Yeah.
Did you carry a knife?
We had knives, I've got knives in there that we had, all of us had knives. And, we didn't carry any food or any rations unless somebody stuck something in their bag. And usually just as quick as you get ashore, and things are real hot, well, you took that backpack off, they throwed it in stack and so forth, so I guess somebody come along and took care of them. But as I say, we went in there, and that night, while we had the bivouac, we couldn't dig in because that hard coral in those runways. So,
Okay, well, let's back up to the landing now. Would you take me through the landing from the time you're in the what do you call them, alligator?
Yeah, I call
You're in
it.
that alligator, and it goes down the ramp of the big landing ship. Pick it up there and just kind of take me through it all the way to where you're on shore. Did you come under fire as you approached?
No, we didn't come in under fire. No, we didn't come in under fire, because nobody's kept their head up. You didn't stick your head up and look around.
So you got your head down below the...
And you take 18, 19, 20-year-old boys. I mean, we all wondered what in the heck was going to see next, you know.
How many men would be on one of those amphibious tractors?
It'd be about a squad, I'd imagine 12.
Okay.
I just can't remember all that stuff, but there's just, I'd say there was 12. See, we had, so it'd probably take 3 of them to take in a platoon, because we had, in a platoon you had 3 squads, and I imagine each one of them helped a squad.
So you had reasonably smooth sailing all the way to the beach.
Oh, yes.
At Roy.
And we hit the beach, we just went right on in, you know, we'd go right on through
Do you know, from that, can you tell me where you landed?
No, I remember this very well.
Let me look at my notes here and see if what you can tell me squares with what the notes say. Let's see here. Let's see, you're in which battalion?
I was in 23rd.
23rd Regiment?
23rd Battalion.
23rd Regiment? What
23rd Regiment.
battalion of the...
And the 1st Battalion.
1st Battalion.
They were coming, A, B, and C.
Okay. Uh,
I don't know whether it red two or...
Well, I don't have that, and I have where the 2nd and 3rd Battalion hit, but I didn't get that out of my notes, so I'll have to look back. I had forgotten.
I was in the 1st Battalion, see Baker coming, but I guess all looks great to me. We did go across over here after we got the island, there's security, still some stuff going on over there, but,
I'll have to look
we
back.
probably got into that about midway through here the first night.
That's okay, we'll check on it later. Anyway, was your, do you know if you were the first troops to land on that beach? Your particular platoon?
No, I don't.
Were there already Marines on the beach?
I don't remember.
You don't recall?
I sure don't.
Okay, so you're able to go all the way to dry land without ever coming under any fire in this landing? Okay. Pick it up from there then. These alligators didn't have a front ramp that let down, right? So you jump over the side. And
we must have not been in the first wave.
I'm not sure, my books weren't telling me whether we were or not.
Well, all I know, we got in there and all we could see was debris, stuff tore up. And it's small those islands, there was a lot of people around,
Right.
And I know
the Marines were landing from 3 different sides of that Roy Island, right?
That's right.
So they're landing here and here, and well, I guess 2 sides of it.
2 sides. But if we landed here, I was over here. But I just don't remember whether it was Red 1 or Red 2. I don't know whether that green book has any of that stuff in it or not.
Well, that's what this one was from right here, and it has some of it. It didn't mention
that green book?
Yeah, it didn't mention the 1st Battalion specifically. So you hit the beach and immediately moved inland.
Yeah.
Did you go all the way to the runways of the airstrip right away?
We were across runways. The island here is covered with runways. Yeah, we crossed runways. And I remember getting over by the edge of the water there somewhere, and they'd already had several Japs captured, and there was bodies, everywhere. I can remember that.
Been killed in the
bombardment. A few little old boats that had been towed up, loaded up in the water, and I can remember that and that and so forth. And then I imagine it was getting pretty close to evening and want to get everything secured in our area, so they put us out and we set up for the night.
So what do you do? You landed right around noon, right? Sometime around midday?
Gosh, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Lord,
So, how did you spend that afternoon? If you land around midday, what's the afternoon consist of? Did you meet any opposition?
No.
Personally that day?
No, we didn't meet any opposition.
So you never fired your gun?
No.
Interesting.
I don't even know whether I ever fired my rifle on Roy.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Gosh. I know that the second day we went on in and we had that island secured, so we started going around through caves and things where they stayed. And I remember...
Still on Roy?
I remember finding a razor and a Japanese straight razor and a belt. And they called it Texas pigskin. I remember that being on.
So you were souvenir hunting.
Well, nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And of course they were piling up supplies, bringing in supplies, and I remember an old truck there. Somebody got it going, an old Japanese truck, and was driving it down on them runways, and it must have had a leak of gas or something, but it started catching on fire. I remember getting out of that, but That's about all I remember there on Roy. Then we went over here the next day and.
On the second day?
Or the third, second day, I guess it was.
Where did you spend that first night?
Oh, down on this island somewhere. They put, we set up a defense where we.
All the way around, all the way around the perimeter of the island?
I guess they went to the other end, I'm sure there was, because we went right on across, and we set up that night, and it's awful long night. And every once in a while, there would be some firing, shots.
Because there was some pretty fierce fighting over on Namur, right?
Yes.
Do you remember the big explosion?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I say, and those all going up in the air, and
There apparently was a series of them, but they said the first one was just like, nobody had ever seen an explosion that big.
I know, I've never seen fireworks or anything like that. That was one thing that I can always remember is the fireworks. We got over there, and there was, they got in a building, found a bank. Heck, we all had Japanese money.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
This was on either the third day? After
I don't even know how many days we stayed on there. We didn't stay there very long. But we just kind of laid around the company just, until wasn't hardly anything for us to do, because we went through and secured and seen that everything, and examined everything, went through all the holes in the building and so forth. And
do you remember your troops taking any Japanese prisoners on the road?
No, we didn't take any prisoners. Like I said, though, I did see some prisoners, 3 of them, in the G-strings and so forth. And it must have been, I figure it must have been between here, but it might have been in here, because it looked like a pier there, where maybe little boats or something could come in, because there were some boats and things down near the water. See, that's the first day. But,
Lots of dead Japanese bodies on the island when you landed.
Well, yeah, there was quite a few. But there's on the inland. There wasn't none around the beaches.
I see.
But they were and around the water on the edges and so forth. Yeah. I think in there it tells how much how many people that our company lost on Roy.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've got the figures right here.
You do?
It wasn't very many. They said that big explosion took more lives than the enemy did. This book says that the 4th Division lost 313 dead and 502 wounded. Japanese casualties estimated at 3,500. Okay, so after Namur was secured, do you recall how long you stayed on the island?
I sure don't.
Would it have been?
We didn't stay very long.
Meaning, what would be a guess?
I'd say
3 or 4 days?
I'd say maybe 5 days or less than a week. Were you in the burial detail? I read that there have been lots of Marines had to try to bury those 3,500 dead Japanese. No, I never was in anything like that.
Was there disappointment among the men for not in your particular outfit that they didn't see any actual fighting, or was it most of people just relieved?
Well, it didn't seem to bother us.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah.
Other Any other incidents, trivial or funny or serious or anything?
Well, I know,
from that
I
out?
know one thing, while I enjoyed, after about the second, third day, they give us permission to go down and swim off the beaches,
Uh-huh.
and that sand, it just, water was beautiful. I know it was just beautiful water. I can remember that much. And that was the bath we got to take while we were on there. And I remember that much real well. But I just don't remember.
Did you feel like you were veterans after that landing, or the fact that you really didn't see any combat? Did you still feel kind of like you were green 6 months later when you're going into Saipan? I mean, did that martial art
Happened next,
Uh-huh.
you know. And we went on, I don't know how long it took us on them ships, because but we went on to Maui, Hawaii, and I can remember more about that first day there than anything, because we kind of loose there on them docks, and man, we eat canned pineapple till we got sick of it. We'd eat so much, eat a lot of beans on them ships, you know, because that's one food that's good food, and that's the Navy. They fed you a lot of beans. And we were looking forward, but when we got to Maui, there wasn't hardly anything over at that camp. You know, we had...
There wasn't really a town or anything.
Here's an article on Camp Maui.
Yeah, I've got that.
You've got it on?
Yes.
Okay. But the marshal was just... I just don't remember a lot about it. Like I said, and after that second day, all we were doing was souvenir hunting, or they put us in certain areas, and they didn't watch us too far. We was out checking, looking things over, you know, just a quincy bunch more. That's all. We didn't lose anybody out of our company. I know that. I don't think we had anybody. Might have had somebody scratched or something from Carl, you know, explosion hitting Carl, and because those islands were, those airports and things, they were Carl, that's what they were made out of. And it's pretty sharp.
Did a buddy in your company that you kind of considered a best friend?
Well, I had about 4 or 5, but they were always just about alike, you know.
Were they all in your platoon?
They were in my platoon and in my squad.
In your squad.
And I still correspond with 3. And of course, several of them got killed. I think they said Bob Hart was a little older than the rest of us, and he got killed later on in Iwo Jima, and I guess all of them were wounded, every one of them. I don't know whether Erdman was wounded, or he, when you lose it, they call it combat fatigue. You know, so much that shelling and so forth, some of them went for Zach, and I think maybe that was him, but I'm not sure. I know that there's some letters in that thing out where he'd been in bad health, and he had lost a son. He must have been partial. Quite a few of those boys in there, they've been making these reunions. But I didn't even know they had a 4th Division outfit until about 4 or 5 years ago. If I had, well, I'd probably have kept up more of this stuff, but I didn't even know when they got the 4th Division together. He got a bunch of stuff in there to put together.
Okay, well, tell me about Maui then, the next one.
Well, one of the little harbors there, Maui, and of course, Maui was strictly agriculture, pineapple and cane fields. And when we got to shore, let us go on them docks, why, they was just stacks and stacks of pineapple, canned pineapple. I know we quite a bit of that. Then they put us on these trucks, and I guess it took us 5 or 6 hours to get back up in them hills where they had our camp set up. And where we was going to set it up, we had tents.
So what was there when you got there?
Well, they had already set up and had some of the tents set up, you know,
I see.
for it. But
Were you among the 1st of the 4th Division to get back?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm sure they had quartermasters and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Got back there earlier, and I have no idea. They might have had the tanks and artillery and those regiments and so forth. They might have got there a lot before we did because they didn't need them on morning. But Maui was a huge camp, and had a lot of, and I guess they picked Maui because of the mountains. It's a volcano on Maui, you know, a lot of jungle area, and of course a lot of beaches, cliffs, and I guess that's one reason they had us trained. That was originally an army base, but they sent us in there, and I guess because the terrain was something like Saipan. So, but there was everything was just all red dirt and canyons, but it didn't take us long to get it cleaned up. We had cots in our tent. We was comfortable. Had cold water for showers, wash your clothes. And every day we had roll call and calisthenics and training, and then they'd take us out. And they worked the dickens out of us.
So you spent the bulk of your time then doing training specifically for that next operation.
That's right.
When did you learn? Did you know before you set off next time what the next destination would be?
No, we didn't know, probably a day or two before we was going. But they had maps and things that they showed us, and we'd be hitting here. Say over here there's going to be this and that. There'll be a sugar factory there. Here's a town that you have to go through, and you know, and the airport over here, and so forth, which was the primary purpose for those islands, let's get those airports.
Right.
And Saipan had, well, I know it had 2 towns on it. I can't even think of it.
What particular things did they emphasize during those months on Maui? Were there any particular drills or maneuvers that you really worked on more than you had, say, in California?
No, it's all just about the same every day. It's pretty, when we'd go out on a program, they might say, now you're going to handle this area, somebody's going to handle that area. That might have been in the plan. But after you get in an area, sometimes those boats don't land you where they're supposed to.
Right. Which apparently was the case on Saipan, from what I've read.
Saipan, and they didn't land you. I don't think we had any trouble like that. I can remember hitting the beach and getting on in there, because I remember going through this several hundred yards, going through that one of their religious parks, you know, where they had all that stuff. I could go through that, but then they were shelling us pretty heavy, so we dug in right at the edge of kind of a swamp, and our foxholes were full of water. So the first day we sat in the water, because they shelling us pretty good. and I think the third day we took off and went to high ground. Probably they helped us probably back. We were probably in reserve there the first day because we dug in down there, and then a couple, 3 days later we took the high ground. We went through the other outfit and took the high ground.
Overall, what of your training do you think was the most valuable part of your training once you got into actual combat?
Well, I think
That you got into combat and said, man, I'm glad we worked on
the
this.
thing in combat and training is keeping your head down and learning to crawl on your belly and and keep going forward. You know,
Real basic stuff.
that's right. Yep. And if you're moving out, you zigzag. Keep a certain amount of distance between you and the next guy. They don't want you ever ganging up, you know. And we always, at night, there's always two of us in the hole. Because one of them is supposed to rest and the other's supposed to be awake. And he'll wake you up and you alternate.
I'm not really ready to get into Saipan in any detail today, but what surprised you when you did finally get into real combat, Saipan? What surprised you most about the whole experience of combat? Do you remember anything striking you as a particular surprise that you hadn't expected?
Well, whenever you start hearing ammunition whiz over your head, you know, because, and so forth, that's when you know you're in combat, you know. There's no surprises because you've been trained for that. Hey, we trained under live ammunition and all that stuff, but you know you're not in training when it's coming off up the higher ground and so forth over you. And
I mean, I guess there's a lot of things that no amount of training can prepare you for.
well, that's right. All we were trained for, we knew we had a job, and we had officers, and we had enlisted personnel. They would tell what we had to do, where we needed to go. If some of them got knocked out, then you take over. Everybody, we all knew what our program was going to be.
Tell me about your officers, starting with the Marshall Islands.
They were, all our officers were young people, just, you know, all of them, I guess, under 30. Here's a picture, but there's all our officers right there. Our captain, he was a lawyer named Weinstein, and that's executive officer. And these two officers, one of them was first platoon and the other second platoon, and this was my officer, Gordon.
Stanley Gordon. And he was the commander of the 3rd platoon.
Yeah, and Captain Weinstein, he got a letter in here he wrote down. Of course, he retired as a major. He stayed in the Marine
I see.
I mean, as a major general. And he was a good officer. He thought a lot of his men.
Okay, tell me a little bit of company commander Gordon.
Well, I don't know, I can tell you anything about him. He's just a real good guy, and he was a leader, and let you know that he kept us informed what was going to happen.
So you would consider him a good company commander?
Yes. All of our officers were good officers. They were well trained, and they did the men. They wanted to be sure that their men were taken care of.
Now, he was with you on Saipan and Tinian as well?
Tinian, and I think then he got killed on Iwo Jima.
Really?
So Herman High, a friend of mine, and Ben told me he got killed. He got killed on. Right here was my squad leader right there, and he got killed on Saipan. I remember when he got killed.
And so he'd be a corporal.
He was a corporal. He might have made sergeant. This was taken before we went over.
Richard Young?
Yeah. And good guy. He was a good guy.
So the squad leader's a corporal.
Well, yeah, some of them were sergeants.
Corporal or sergeant.
And often he was in that.
And the platoon leader was typically a lieutenant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of them were second.
And Gordon, this Stanley Gordon was your platoon leader.
He was our platoon.
And the company commander was Weinstein.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you have much interaction with any officers higher than them ever?
Nope. I had to go to the sick bay a time or two. Dr. Moss, I remember. In fact, he's the one when I come back and he took care of my wounds and so forth, after they got me back there away from the front. But we had one officer, I guess he was in headquarters. His name was, his brother run for governor in New York. Good Lord, I didn't think I'd ever get governor with a little mustache. He didn't win. But he come around pretty often. He enjoyed, being around men. But I'm letting to keep these officers pretty busy on what's going on, so forth. And they'd call all the sergeants in, like this first sergeant, and all these were platoon sergeants here. They was over the platoons, and they're the one that got us all together and everything. This fella come by to see me last summer, and I've got to get in touch with him.
Who's that?
He's one of the few guys from Texas. Kenneth Stewart. He was going out, he was originally from Denton. He retired down there from the helicopter plant in Fort Worth, he told me. But there's very few Texans in our outfit. This outfit was formed on the East Coast. These letters in here are all from people up east. Philadelphia, New Jersey, and all up through there. And
so you were on Maui for how long before the Saipan?
Well, let's see, we got back there sometime in February. And then we hit the marshes, what was it, in July? So we probably a couple of 3 weeks before we got over there, because then we went out on maneuvers, and then we went in, and we was in Honolulu Harbor there on that ship for, seemed to me like nearly a week, I guess, while it's getting all the ships and everything to go.
You never had opportunity to go to Honolulu during that. Would you have a weekend of liberty or something to be able to leave Maui?
A day liberty or something like that, but our boat happened to be in the old Honolulu Harbor. I've been in Pearl Harbor a couple times. Man, they just tie them ships, tie them together. If you want to get over somewhere, you have to go over all them ships. But we pulled up to an old wooden dock there in Honolulu Harbor. So
you mean when you were getting ready to leave for Saipan?
We were getting ready to go to Saipan, and our ship, we walked downtown, and because I know we went to the USO to get ice cream. And then one time they took us out for a party down on Waikiki Beach with nothing there but one hotel. And we marched down there, and they had beer for me. They had good picnic lunch, and they got into a lot of boxing, different things. And but then when we left out of there, that's when we started ganging up, getting ready to go on to, so,
Were you ever at Pearl Harbor?
oh, yeah, yeah, I seen all them ships.
Still see lots of the damage, I guess.
Yeah, I can see all them, ships, Arizona and them, that's still laying there. Yeah, that's what I was telling you, when we went to Pearl Harbor, we was going on maneuvers, they'd just tie them ships together. You wouldn't be up to no dock. But we were fortunate that, and I'm sure of course, they couldn't put a lot of transports in at Honolulu Harbor, and I'm sure there was a bunch of them there like that. I know one time we was in Honolulu, in Pearl Harbor, and so we got to go ashore, and we called it, where you get a beer, we called it slop shoot. We'd have to line up, be in a line maybe 100 yards long to get there, and they'd let you have 2 beers.
And call it what?
Slop shoot.
Oh.
And then see, I come back in Pearl Harbor, and went out of Pearl Harbor come in hospital ship.
So, but during that 4 or 5 months that you're in Maui, did you have opportunities to go to Honolulu?
No.
You were on Maui the whole time.
No,
Never got off Maui.
we had a couple or 3 liberties that we went to some of these small towns.
I see.
There on Maui, nice little towns, and in fact, I have a picture somewhere taken of me and some of my best buddies, and I'll get it for you if I can locate it. In one of those towns, and I can't even remember the town. I know one of them had a USO and had a swimming pool. I didn't swim, but some of them boys, Carolina, one of them was an awful good diver, and he done a lot of diving around there. And one time they put us on shuttle marches. We might march 5 miles, and then the trucks, then we could see the trucks up ahead pick us up. They'd let another bunch out, march 5 miles. We'd get in them trucks and ride around them and get out again. Well, there's just cane fields on both sides of us. So I had my BAR when we buddied, and I said, take this, I want some sugar cane to eat in the back of that truck. So, boy, I'll take off up there and take that big old knife and whittle them out 4 or 5 pieces of that, trimmed it up, run like the devil and start get up in the truck. Lieutenant Garden come back there. It's against the rules to even get in them fields. He said, you know you ain't supposed to, give me that cane. Him and the platoon sergeant and the truck driver eat that sugar cane. Them boys in the back end sure razzed me in that. We call them old 4x4s, old trucks up there with. Yeah. Then you get up there on them mountains, and there would be bamboo forest. Brother, and that stuff just like that. And they trained us, and they put the lieutenant or sergeant or somebody in there, and we'd have to try to sneak in there without making any racket, sneak on, get through stuff like that, night training and so forth. And I had calluses on my feet, I guess that big, from walking. Because when I was in the hospital in the state, they'd take mineral oil and rub on my feet to make it soft where they that stuff off. But Maui, and there's little villages all over Maui. And they take that cane pup, they put that in, and I guess also from those pineapple, they put those all in the silos, for feeding cattle feed and so forth. And there was banana trees around and papayas. I always can remember papaya trees because them hanging down look like bull nuts,
I guess there were limited opportunities for getting in trouble then on Maui on your time off.
We never did get out of camp very much. Of course, your platoon maybe go in and you're on guard duty for 2 days, so you're on 4 hours, 8, you stay there in that guard shack, and the chaplain, I know this Catholic chaplain, he'd always come by. Anybody need any TS slips today? Tough shit.
What did that mean?
TS? If you got kind of duty, you'd say tough shit. and he won't know if anybody wanted any TS slips. But yeah, Maui was a good camp.
I guess you were ready for a change, though, by the time that
Well,
5 months
we
was
won't
over.
get the war so we can go home, you know. That's the only reason that kids, most of us went to the Marine Corps, because you thought we'd get in there and get the war over. You young kids, you didn't think about that.
What sort of news of the war did you get while you were on Maui? Do you recall?
You
Did you
know,
get regular,
I
did you
don't
get newspapers
really remember
regularly?
I really don't remember getting any news.
Of course, I guess not a lot was going on in the Pacific during those months. We're kind of between things.
They hit Tarawa while we were there, and they were still over in, New Georgia and New Guinea and over in there, but we never did get any, we didn't have no radio. Officers did, probably did, but, most of the news I get a letter, something from Dad, and he'd put in there, says, well, that's done this and they done that, I hear where they're over there. And he done figured out that I was on the marshals, because he read books and stuff on all that stuff.
I was going to ask, one of my questions I'd written here was how much did your family know about where you were and what you were doing?
Because we couldn't tell them. Everything that we wrote went through a censor.
So even after the Marshall Island campaign, you couldn't write home and tell about it?
No. Now, they know we were on Maui. I can't remember.
Probably did.
But we had V-mail. You couldn't write very much at little that's one thing, they wanted you to keep write your parents, so forth, keep contact, which I wanted to, because there's nothing like getting a letter from home. I don't know whether I got a letter from a girlfriend or not, but I guess it did. I don't remember. But that's just like you're sitting here in a little world. You live in a tent with so many, those people you with them every day.
How many were into a tent? They were pretty big tents?
They're about 12. It holds about a squad.
Oh, okay.
And and you just really, you didn't get to know all the people in your company. You get, visit some of them, but you just knew people in your squad and your platoon. That's who you worked with and everything.
What sort of, I don't know how to ask, I don't quite know what I want to ask. At this point, what were your attitudes towards the Japanese soldiers? Or did you even have it, were you able to form any attitudes at this point, before Saipan?
Oh, when we were back in the States training, the one thing they taught us was hate. Hate those jobs. Hate them. Your job is to kill them. Oh, yes, sir. That's what they taught us, to hate. Because they figured you hate your enemy. That you don't give them any.
I guess that was pretty easy after Pearl Harbor, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and let's see, there was, what was that island that Roosevelt's son was on and so forth? Carlson's Raiders stuff back there, they'd show us that, and tell us some of the things, how they, treated our fellow Marines and so forth.
So you're getting good doses of good doses of indoctrination before you ever even go about me.
And
of course, they didn't have to make it up, I guess, because the truth was bad enough, right, about the Japanese.
We had one guy in our company that was from Carson and his raiders. They went in there in submarines and then rubber boats. I forget this little island, Tucky. Pretty tough battle, just maybe a company. And he was a big guy. Where he dug in, he didn't have no nails. Just digging in the sand and so forth. I can't remember any of his name, but everybody knew who he was. And I think that my platoon leaders in boot camp, they'd been to Guadalcanal and come back, been looking to come back. But one thing that they had in the Marine Corps was discipline. And that's what I think we need in this country for these kids that's going rough, getting out and getting in trouble. I believe in setting up them boot camp and them kids in there and discipline. But you know, when I was going to high school, we had a sheriff, and he had 2 deputies and a jailer for Nolan County. And there's less people living in Nolan County than there was back then because there's somebody on over 160 acres you go out here. And now, you got to have so much law because of all this dope and crap going on. You go down there to that city hall and I bet you there's 10 or 12 cars down there. When I was growing up, there's one patrol car in town. Policemen walk the square. So discipline is what that's one thing in the Marine Corps. When you went to boot camp, your drill instructor, sergeants and corporals, they were sir, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And they taught you discipline.
And they were mostly combat veterans.
Uh-huh. And some of them, well, one of the boys was a platoon. He was a big, tall boy, and he stayed there for maybe 1 or 2, but I run into him over on Saipan. He's out there one day. I seen him